So welcome to the Curly Wavy Masterclass. This week, every day at 10 a.m., I will be going live to talk a bit about a very specific curl topic. And then love to see you guys join along on your take on it and your experience with that topic, and just kind of create a community that is geared around curls and waves. So this week, it's the Curly Wavy Masterclass. These are my 5 basic steps that it takes to get started to take care of your hair, your natural hair pattern, okay? So I'm going to go over a couple housekeeping items, and then I'm going to jump into today's topic. So if you haven't already, if you're part of this group and you haven't already, I want you to download the free workbook. I put together a really helpful tool. It's going to help you along the week to understand what we're working through. I have worksheets in there. I have everything I talk about is broken down in that workbook. So if reading is better for you than watching videos, you can see the content that way. So all you have to do to get that is go to the pinned post, download that. You'll have to opt in. I think you have to register, put in your email address. That way I know where you're coming from. And then I'll send you the free workbook that complements this challenge, okay? So next, I want you to set your alarms for 10 a.m. East Coast every day this week. I'll be going live every day. I will be talking about different topics, and all of it is going to be foundational stuff for curly wavy hair care. So if you've already gotten the guide, if you'll just drop the hashtag, even if you're watching this after the video, if you just drop the word like workbook or already got my workbook, just let me know. I want to make sure those are going through. I want to make sure people are getting them and, be able to view them and everything's right technically. The third thing, I want to invite you to participate in the homework, okay? Every day we will have a small bit of homework, super easy, super simple. I invite you to be part of it, and here's why. Part of having curly, wavy hair and embracing it and continuing to embrace it is being surrounded around like-minded people. Because the truth is, many of us, me for instance, are part of communities that don't really get or understand curly wavy hair. I'm the only one of my friends completely that have curls at all. Most of my friends have stick straight hair, which is fine, totally great. But they really don't get the struggle of like having to sleep on silk and having to use deep conditioners and having to troubleshoot all this stuff. And it wasn't until I really started to get involved in a community of people that got me that I stuck to it. Because the other thing is, when you aren't around like-minded people, you start like getting in your head and you're like, oh, are my curls really ugly? Or maybe I can't really rock this. Maybe it's just not in to rock your curls. And that's like the farthest thing from the truth. By the way, this is a disclaimer. I consider all curly waves, I just say curls. And I'm trying to change that in my mind to curly waves, because I know a lot of people in this group have wavy hair, but you are part of the group too. I definitely want there to be more content saying that waves are curls too. That would actually be a great like nugget moment right there. Like hashtag waves are curls too, okay? I have people in my life that tell me, I was told the other day that I absolutely do not have curly hair, and I shouldn't even be saying that. And then I also have people that have wavy hair that are like, oh my goodness, you have super, super ringlet curls, because my hair is very in between, and we will talk more about curl type today. But just so if you ever hear me say just curls, it is an all-encompassing curly wave. Shay, thanks so much for jumping on. I'm so glad you're going to be part of this group. So, yeah, just keep an open mind for that definition curls, because it's a very broad spectrum. Upstate New York. I'm going to be there next week, Lydia. I am so excited you're tuning in. I bet it's beautiful there in the fall. Okay, next, be active in the group. This goes along with your homework. Part of this group, though, is to create a community, guys. I cannot tell you, I think after going through COVID and seeing like what it's like being isolated, I have more respect for community now more than ever. Hey, Courtney, thanks for jumping on. I think that community has been so distant from us because of the last year that being part of a community is just a game changer for any topic, really. And part of being part of a community is giving back. So yes, I want you to participate in the homework. Even if you've been on this curly journey for a long time and you're like, I got this, it's still great to revisit all of the foundations because curly hair is always changing and curly hair is always going to change. Curly wavy hair, it truly is a journey. So I invite you to just participate, not only updating your homework, also commenting on people's posts and just encouraging each other along the way. That's a big part of what this group is. I just want this group to be a bright, shining light for curls and waves around the world. Okay, so here's the other thing. If at any point you hear something that's like, oh, like it's an aha moment or a little golden nugget, I want you to use the hashtag golden nugget, which leads me to or hashtag nugget, which leads me to my next point. Is the way that I run groups. I've run tons of Facebook groups in the past. I've been part of tons of Facebook groups, and it's super easy for them to get really, really messy. So when it comes to this Facebook group, I just ask that you use appropriate hashtags for the posts you make. For those of you who don't know, the way Facebook works is it orders stuff by hashtag. So if you were to post in the group today, hashtag nugget, curls or waves or curls too. Then at the end of the week, we could all click on hashtag nugget and we could see everybody's nuggets throughout this week of what people have learned, okay? A nugget, there's no silly nugget. Anything could be a nugget. If you're brand new to the curly girl method and you're like, oh, I didn't know a curl type was, or not even the curly girl method. I misspoke. This is not the curly girl method. This is a simplified version of curly hair care. So I just want to correct myself on that. So use a hashtag, and if your hashtag is like, I just learned today that there were curl types. I didn't know that. That's great. And it's like an aha moment. That's the hashtag, okay? So I invite you anytime you hear something, whether it's from me or one of the other people in this group that's sharing, if you're like, oh, if it just clicks, a really great way for you to just concrete that in your mind is to share it, write it down, write it in the group, share it in the group. It'll be helpful for everyone, and then someone else will learn from you. It's a huge part of community and a way to give back within the Facebook community. And the last thing I ask of you is to invite a curly or wavy girl. Why? Because I know there are more curly and wavy girls somewhere that feel alone and feel hopeless and are, in that endless cycle of straightening, damage. Okay, I want to go wear my natural curl pattern, don't know how to do it, doesn't feel like anyone else is doing it, when there really is a whole world of people doing it really well. Okay, so go ahead. Don't just add anyone. I definitely want this content to be valuable to any member in this community. But I know if you have any friends that you're like, you think they might benefit from this, just invite them. That would be great. And tag them in the welcome post. That would be awesome, just to spread the word and spread the curl and wave love around the world. Okay, so I want to quickly share my past and my journey just because I think it's better. It's easier to relate to somebody when you know their past, okay? So I had curly hair since I could remember. It was back in the days of there were no curl-specific products on the market, and nobody knew how to do curly hair. Curls were not accepted. Like, it was not totally cool, and everyone thought it was great to wear curls. Most of our family photos growing up, my hair is in a complete frizzy mess. Because my mom didn't know how to do it. My mom did have curly hair. My grandma is Cuban Spanish. That is where my curls come from. She's an immigrant. And my mom had curly hair, didn't really know how to do it, and just straightened it and didn't know how to do mine. So I spent my whole life feeling like my hair was just, people used to call me lion's mane, all sorts of things, right? And I just got this feeling that like, I had this like unwritten idea that curls weren't pretty, and like if I was going to be cool and fit in and be pretty, I needed to straighten my hair. And I started doing that at a very young age, probably around 9 or 10. Maybe 12, probably 12. I feel like 9 or 10 is a little young to be with a straightening iron. But I straightened my hair for years. It was incredibly damaged, and I didn't care about that. I just kept straightening it. I was under heat. It took me 45 minutes And I didn't love doing it. I just didn't know what else to do. So fast forward to my pregnancies. I had 4 back-to-back pregnancies. We lost 1 baby, and then I had 3 babies within 3 years. It was crazy. Anyway, I started experiencing postpartum hair loss, okay? Pretty bad. And that's when I really started thinking like, okay, I have to do something different. I have to really start caring about my hair, or who knows what's going to happen when I'm, in my late 30s or late 40s. I really want to take care of what I've been given. And that is when I started really learning how to accept my curls long term, okay? That was a little over 2 years ago. So I started slowly sharing my journey on Instagram, and it really started to pick up. And I was like, wow, people really resonate with this topic. And so I ended up starting a blog, and it was all just documenting at first. And then I started getting tons of views, and now I have over 100,000 views have visited my blog, and I have a community of 11,000 people from around the world with curly and wavy hair. And I have, done consults and courses and downloads and all sorts of resources to help women better understand and therefore accept their hair, because I really think that curls and waves need to be accepted and loved and cared for, and a lot of it is just that people don't know how. So if you can relate to that at all, just drop a comment and let me know. Let me know a little bit about your story, just in like a little tiny paragraph, like, yes, I was alone too, or I didn't know how to take care of my hair, or I straightened for years, or damage from heat. Just let me know something, if anything, you resonated with that story. And again, this is all part of the community building of just like understanding each other and relating to each other and supporting each other around a topic, okay? So next I'm going to move on to today's topic. I do want to keep these videos somewhat short. I'd like to keep them to 30 minutes. If it goes to 40, 45, I will apologize for that, but I also want to make sure we get the content that we need, okay? So today's topic, this method I came up with after doing a lot of testing and experimenting for years, and I simplified the process because curly wavy hair care has been blown out of the water with complication. It is actually not that complicated. It's pretty straightforward. It is ever changing, and it will be an ongoing journey, yes, but it's not complicated. It's pretty simple, and that's why I came up with the curls framework, CURLS. I made it that way on purpose because I wanted people to really be able to remember it. So the C in curls stands for carefully assess the current condition of your hair. I cannot tell you how many people have started their curl journey and got all excited and read a few articles or watched a few YouTube videos and then went to the store and got all these products and then used them and were followed by a terrible wash day or a week's worth of terrible wash days. And then we're just like, I can't, it's just not the right way. Or, I didn't get the results I want. Or they keep on that path. They keep having, using these products and they don't really know what they're doing. They don't really know their curls. And then they get discouraged. And if you've ever felt that way, just drop the word discouraged. If you've ever felt discouraged, overwhelmed, just like this is not going to work for me, just drop the word discouraged in the comment section, okay? I have people all over that are saying, I relate to your struggles, damage my hair from straightening. I think a lot of people can relate to this, okay? So what I want to say is, and part of my method is, before you do anything, I want you to carefully assess the current condition of your hair, okay? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But in order to go somewhere, or get somewhere or make change, you have to be very, very clear about your current condition. There can be no toxic positivity. There can be no well, it's really not that bad. And I'm not saying it has to be terrible, but I'm saying you have to realistically assess the current condition of your hair. Is it damaged? Is it color damaged? Is it, we're going to talk about the type and all of that stuff in a minute, but before you put anything on your hair, you need to understand it, okay? Like we need to understand what it needs, what's gonna make it heal, okay? Understand the damage, where it's coming from, what caused it before you can do anything, okay? So the first thing, and I sent out an email this morning, you got your workbook. I will send out a recap with all the notes from this training. There's a super helpful tool I designed called the Curl Assessment Tool. I want you to print that out. And this is the homework for today, okay? So write this down. You'll get it in your notes. I want to see you guys participating, okay? Your homework for today is to print out that form, or if you don't want to print it out and you just want to write on a piece of paper the answers, curl assessment. And I want you to fill out in detail that form, okay? And I'm going to tell you how a little bit, okay? Now remember that Rome wasn't built in a day, you guys. Rome was not built in a day. And your curls are, and your waves, they're not going to change overnight. There is no magical product. There is no one thing that's going to happen that's just going to change your curls. This is really a whole mindset shift. It's learning different habits and techniques and trial and error. And there's going to be a messy middle. Like any project you do, you start, you're excited, and the finish, you're excited, but the middle can get a little bit messy. That is what's going to happen. So I want you to start changing your mindset around like the outcome of what's happening and really fall in love with the journey. I know that is such a overused topic, but it's so true, is like falling in love with learning about your curls and allowing them to be crazy. Someone in the group earlier this week said, I loved it. I'm allowing my curls to be free. And I was like, yes, I just love that because it's so true. So just remember that it's ever changing and it's going to take some time. Next, I want you to take a before and after picture. Okay, this is part of your homework too. You can upload all three of these things or just one, or just let us know that you finished the homework. Take a before and after picture of your hair in good lighting. And then I want you to fill out the assessment tool. Now, the assessment tool is number one, your hair type. Okay, I want to talk about this topic for a little bit. If you've ever been confused about your hair type, drop a comment and just say confused about hair type or confused. Just confused is fine. And if you're watching the replay, go ahead and drop this too. This is just a great way to interact and really retain the knowledge, okay? So there is this big confusion around hair type. Hair type, in my opinion, has been completely blown out of the water. Is it important? Yes, it is very important. But it is not important to break down into 2A to 4C. For those of you who might be confused what I'm talking about, there are curl types that range, technically, from 2A, which would be like a little tiny wave, to 4C, which would be like the tiniest little coil you could possibly imagine, okay? See, Natalie's confused. I understand, Natalie. And I see all the time people just like, I love it, you guys. If you've ever been confused about your hair type, just drop in the comments. So confused about my hair type. Okay, I want to break this whole idea of hair type down into categories, okay? Because at the end of the day, I don't believe it truly matters if you are 4C or 3B, okay? And also, that's one. I don't think it truly matters. It matters what category you're in. It is important. It doesn't matter that you nail the number and letter, okay? The other reason that I think that it's so confusing, that needs to go away. The whole curl type conversation with all those need to go away, is that nobody has one curl. Not nobody. The majority of us do not have one curl type. So if you have multiple curl types, let me know. Say, I have multiple curl types and I have no idea how to identify that. Or just say confused about my curl, or I'm sorry, just say multiple curl types. So for instance, I'll show you. I have back here some just like wavy frizz going on, okay? And then I've got this little guy right here who's probably more, would fall in like a 3A. And then I have these little guys. These would be more of like a 2C, I would say. And again, these are all, it's a very broad spectrum, you guys. Curls and waves are a broad spectrum. This also doesn't even account for the fact that your curl type changes. Your curl type changes on weather, hormones, the amount of dew point, the amount of glycerin in the air, the products you're using, how you dried it. It changes with age, with hormonal changes, okay? So many things affect your hair type. So that's why I see people, because everyone has said, like, once you know your hair type, then you'll be able to figure out everything else. It's not totally true. Once you know your hair type, you'll have an idea of where to go, but it's definitely not just like a one size fits all, and it's ever changing. So I want you to, first of all, I invite you to let that go. Let that go of having to have this specific curl type, okay? Then I want you to go through what I have in the workbook, okay? Go through the workbook and select a category. The categories, which are so much easier to identify, are you wavy, curly, or coily, okay? If that instantly confuses you, if I said that and you're like, I'm not really sure. Some people will say, like, oh yes, I'm definitely wavy. And some people are like, I'm definitely curly. And some people are like, I'm for sure coily. But then there's people that are like, am I curly? I think maybe I'm wavy. Or am I coily or am I curly? If that's you, there's nothing wrong with you. It's not that you're just like, can't figure it out and you're a terrible person. It's that you have some sort of combination. For instance, I would not just say like, yes, my hair is curly. I consider myself a curly wavy. And that is why I named this group Curly Wavies, okay? But maybe you're like, ooh, I'm maybe more of like a wavy curly because like I have some curls, but mostly waves. Or if you're like me, you can say like, oh, I'm definitely a curly wavy. I have curls, but I have waves also. Or you can be a coily curly. You can say I have coils, but some of them are more curls, okay? When you do this, when you group this into these 3 categories, it is very freeing for one, because you're not obsessing over that number letter. And it's also going to give you the information you need. That's all the information you need. So if you're listening to this, you're like, oh, I know what I am. I am in this category. Drop it below. I want to see what you guys have to say. So I am a wavy curly. I am a curly wavy. I am a wavy coily. I am a curly coily, or I am a coily curly. Like, whatever of those combinations you fall into, that is the base point of where we go. And then once you figure that out, let that go, because it doesn't matter that it's perfectly on, and it's always going to change. Okay, next we're going to talk about porosity. Porosity is what your hair is made up of. Your hair shaft is made up of little shingle-like layers that are kind of like this, okay? And they lay. And porosity is refers to how tight or loose those shingles are. So if you have very low porosity, that means that these shingles, I'm going to turn sideways for you, are tight. When your shingles or your porosity is low and those shingles are tight, that means 2 things. One, it means that it's harder to treat your hair because it's harder for things to get in your hair shaft and penetrate. But it also means that, typically speaking, your hair will not lose moisture or protein, and we'll talk about that later in this week, as quickly, because those shafts are tight. So it takes a while to open those shafts and penetrate them. These people usually have a hard time getting color too, because it takes a while to remove and penetrate color. So those shafts are harder to open, but once they open and they close, they hold that moisture and protein in longer, okay? So when someone says, what's your porosity refers to how well can products and moisture flow in and out of your hair. In contrast, high porosity hair is someone whose shingles are lifted quite a bit. When you have high porosity hair, treating it is great because you see really quick results because it just sucks up that moisture or it sucks up that protein. But typically speaking, it also doesn't hold that moisture or protein long. So you do need to treat more often, okay? Now, I want to just put in a disclaimer here, and this is going to be for the whole week. This is going to be anytime you hear me talk. The disclaimer is that there's no one size fits all. There is just no one size fits all, and it could always be changing. Like there are some people who have low porosity, but maybe they do still lose moisture quickly. And you know, it goes back to science being an ever evolving thing. Like it's never going to be, we're never going to know like exactly how things happen, and that's not going to change. The only thing we actually do know is that everything will change and can change and has the potential to change, okay? So again, and this goes back to it being a journey. Like you can't just be like, I'm this is what I need to do, and this is it forever, and I want to see results. That's just not how it works. And that's why I wanted to create a group where we can ongoing get education and troubleshoot and all of that stuff, okay? So then there's, of course, a medium range. The medium range is like, you're not really low porosity, you're not really high porosity, you're somewhere in the middle. By the way, porosity is also somewhat determined to genetics. This is up for argument. I believe my hair is medium to high porosity, okay? Also, when you treat or when you use heat, when you color your hair, any of that stuff, it also interferes with the porosity of your hair because you lifted that cuticle. That's how you color your hair. They've lifted that cuticle with bleach and penetrated it with the color, and it changes the color. So my hair is typically, in its most healthiest state, a medium porosity, but because I've colored it, it's more of a high porosity because that shaft has been lifted and it never kind of closes all the way back, especially when you're dealing with color, okay? So there are a couple different ways to determine porosity. Personally, I think you just need to work with your hair for a while and figure it out, but there is a quick test you can do, and I do think it's somewhat accurate. All you have to do is get a clean piece of hair, put it in a cup of room temperature water, okay? If the hair shaft instantly floats to the bottom, what do you think that's indication of? Let me know what you think. Does that mean low porosity or high porosity? I'm going to give you guys a minute just to tell me what you think. If you put the hair in a glass and it sinks to the bottom instantly, what do you think that's indicating? So that is indication that you have high porosity. Why? Because the shaft is lifted and it fills with water right away and then sinks to the bottom. Okay? Now, hi, you guys are smarties. There's no pulling a fast one on you. Okay. Now, if it stays on top of the water and it doesn't sink, guess what that means? Low porosity, because those shafts are closed. If it sinks slowly to the middle and then kind of hangs there, medium porosity, okay? Now, this test is highly controversial because there's a lot of things that go into it. If the water temperature's off, it could affect it. If you have product buildup on your hair, it could affect it, okay? But it's still a decent way to gauge what your porosity is. And the reason porosity is important is because it's going to play a huge role in the products you choose, and we'll talk about that later this week. Okay. Again, here's another thing to keep in mind. You might have a piece of hair that floats like this towards the bottom and the top because you could have in a single hair strand different porosity. So like my hair up here is lower porosity because it hasn't been colored. And then as it gets down here, it's higher porosity. So what does that tell us? That also tells us that we can style our hair differently or different parts of our hair differently, because if I know this has higher porosity than this, I'm going to use different products or apply it differently, or maybe apply different amounts, okay? So we got your hair type. We have your hair porosity. We're going to move on to the texture of your hair. Pretty simple. Texture of your hair is either fine, medium, or coarse. You might be able to just tell that by feeling it, okay? I want you to get really used to just really getting to know your hair. Just like fall in love with it. Just let yourself, I invite you to just fall in love with your hair this week, okay? So there is another test you can do for this. You can take a piece of hair, and if you have, I don't know if you guys can see that. If you put it in your fingers and you cannot feel it at all, you more than likely have very, very fine hair. So fine hair, the texture of your hair refers to the individual hair strand, what it's made up of. Mine is like a medium to coarse. I can feel it pretty good. But, so if you can feel it in there, you're like, yeah, I can feel it. probably medium or medium to coarse. And then if you're like, oh yeah, it is definitely there, then that's coarse. So that means it just simply means that your individual hair strand is either fine, medium, or coarse. So I want you to do that right now, even if you're watching in the replay. I want you to take out a strand of hair. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think it's fine, medium, or coarse, okay? And then while you're doing that, we're gonna move on to the next step, is the density of your hair. Density refers to how many hair strands there are per square inch on your head. There's a couple different ways to do this, okay? Number one, if you just part your hair down the middle, and if you have just like this blatant line, I have a pretty blatant line, okay? But you can still see there's like hair, you know, when I pull it down, it's blatant, but if I were to just, you know, go like this, it's not as blatant, right? That is a medium. I'm like a true medium girl, okay? It's a medium density, meaning there's about a medium amount of hair follicles per square inch on my head. Now, if you part your hair and there's like not a hole, but like it's clear, right? Like you can see the whole line, no problem. It's probably thinner density, meaning there are less hair follicles per square inch. And if you part your hair and you're like, where in the world is that part? I have no idea. You are high density or thick. So thin, medium, thick. And again, I want to go back to the hair love here for a minute. There is no shame in your game, okay? Thin hair does not mean that you're less than or you can't wear your hair curly or, you know, you're a loser or any of those things. It just means you have a little bit of less hair than the person that has super thick hair. So I just want to kind of like rewire our brains around these terms that have been like derogatory or made us feel bad or stopped us from wearing our hair. It's more about identifying what your hair is and then making a plan to move forward and care for it the best way, okay? Rather than just living in this constant like, I hate my hair, it's the worst, all this stuff. Let's just accept where it is, make a plan to get it to its healthiest state and learn to love it. Also, if you have thin hair, that doesn't mean you always will. There's a lot of things that play a role with thin hair, okay? It could be your natural amount, genetics are a huge role. Like there's just a certain amount of hair a lot of people will have, okay? Then you have, you know, damage, hair loss, postpartum hair loss, all this stuff that could have caused you to have thin hair. There's a lot of things you can do to counteract that and promote new hair growth, okay? And then there's, you know, what you have done as far as damage goes, like doing damage, detangling improperly, not protecting your hair, all of that can cause hair loss, okay? So again, instead of beating ourselves up about like, oh, I have hair loss, it's the worst, let's just kind of start at the start, assess where we're at, and then make a plan to move forward, okay? Sound good? Okay, so, and you can go ahead and drop thin, medium, thick, density of your hair, no problem. Then you're gonna note the current condition of your hair. Current condition of your hair refers to damage, thinning, you know, it gets super tangly, super dry, weighted down, stringy, whatever adjective you use to describe your hair. And just think of it as trying to get a clear picture so we can move forward. Again, you know, nobody's judging. Everyone has some damage. Some have worse than others. Mine, for instance, was damage to a terrible place. And before I started this whole journey, and now my hair is like the healthiest it's ever been, minus the color, because the color is always going to add, you know, more damage. Okay, so remember, when it comes to embracing your natural hair pattern, think of it as an ever-changing journey. Fall in love with the process, and Rome wasn't built in a day, okay? So next, what I want you to do is print out that sheet, the curl assessment sheet, answer the questions, upload it to the group, use the hashtag, what's the homework hashtag today? We have a homework hashtag curl assessment. So you're just gonna, and be creative, be creative. You can do your before and after picture. You can write it just in a post. You can make a video. If you wanna make a video and share with us, I would love to see that. But let me know what the current condition of your hair is. And I just wanna remind you, if you haven't gotten the workbook, sign up for that. Set your alarm for 10 a.m. tomorrow. We are going to be talking about what the U stands for in the curls method, and you are not going to want to miss. This whole training is designed to build upon each other. So each day you're going to learn something to layer the information with the next day. And I specifically structured this training that way because a lot of times information on the internet is like drinking out of a fire hose. It's like a fire hose and you're just like eating it up and you retain not that much. But by layering content and foundations, you are much more likely to not only remember, but also implement the training, okay? Thank you all for jumping on. Thank you all for watching the replay. This will be available for the remainder of the week. And I will see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. I cannot wait to see all of your homework.